My name is Dr. Andrew Collins. I've been working in emergency medicine for over a decade now, and if you asked me a year ago, I would have sworn I'd seen everything. That's the thing about the AU, get used to the chaos. The stabbings, the drunk drivers, the domestic violence cases, the overdoses. People come in broken. And sometimes you put them back together, sometimes you can't. Either way, you keep moving. You have to. I used to think the scariest nights were the ones where we were overwhelmed sirens screaming, trauma bays full, blood on the floor, alarms blaring. But I've learned something since then. The scariest nights are the quiet ones. This story happened on one of those quiet nights. Late October, a Tuesday, the kind of night where the hospital feels half abandoned. The air outside was sharp, the streets damp from a misting rain. Inside, the halls buzzed with that low hum of fluorescent lights, and every sound seemed to echo farther than it should. I came in at 10:45 p.m., grabbed the usual bitter cup of coffee from the break room, and checked in with the outgoing physician. Nothing serious lined up. A sprained ankle from a college basketball game, an elderly man with chest pains that turned out to be indigestion, and a college kid too drunk to find his dorm. In other words, a pretty standard shift. That's the rhythm of the night shift. Long stretches of nothing punctuated by bursts of chaos. But sometimes, in the stillness, you feel the weight of the building itself. Every eye doctor I know has stories they swap in hushed tones. Strange cases, things medicine couldn't explain. The kind of things we chalk up to stress or exhaustion, but still whisper about anyway. I'd always dismissed those stories. Until that night. Until her. It was 1:47 a.m. when the paramedics wheeled her in. Found her collapsed at Greenlawn Cemetery, one of them said. His voice was too casual, like he didn't want to admit how weird it sounded. Unconscious, but vitals are good. No ID, no phone, just this. He held up a silver chain they'd taken off her neck. She couldn't have been more than 22. Pale skin, long dark hair damp from the mist outside. She was wearing a plain black dress too thin for the weather, and no shoes. Her bare feet were caked with mud. At first glance, she didn't look critical. She was breathing steadily. Her pulse was strong, blood pressure normal. In fact, she looked fine, except for her eyes. They were open, wide open. But she wasn't looking at us. She wasn't looking at anything. Just staring upward, unblinking, as if there was something on the ceiling only she could see. And then there was the smell. Hospitals always smell the same antiseptic bleach, that faint trace of latex gloves. But she carried a scent that cut through all of it. Sweet, cloying, unmistakable. Lily, not just flowers in general funeral lily. The scent was so strong it hit me before the gurney even stopped. I glanced at the paramedics, expecting one of them to wrinkle their nose, but they didn't seem to notice. We rolled her into bed 12, one of the quieter rooms at the end of the hall. Nurse Janet started hooking her up to monitors while I did the standard neuro checks. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" I said, shining a light into her eyes. Her pupils reacted perfectly. "Can you squeeze my hand?" Nothing. "Do you know where you are?" Silence. The monitors chirped steadily. Heart rate 76. Oxygen 98%. Textbook normal. I started dictating her case into the chart when Janet leaned closer. "Her lips are moving," she whispered. I froze. Sure enough, the girl's mouth was shifting ever so slightly. No sound. Just this faint, irregular flutter, like she was mouthing something to herself. I leaned down, straining to hear, and that's when I realized it wasn't just her lips moving. There was sound. A whisper. But not one voice. Several. Overlapping, layered. Too many to count. I jerked back, heart hammering. Janet's eyes met mine. "You heard that too, didn't you?" All I could do was nod. I wanted to believe it was a trick of fatigue. You work enough night shifts, your brain starts to fill in gaps, invent sounds, play games with shadows. But I couldn't ignore the way Janet was staring at the girl, the way her lips trembled, like she was afraid to speak it aloud. The whispering continued. If I tilted my head closer, I could almost make out words, but they slipped away the second I tried to focus. Male voices, female voices, old, young, layered together like a chorus underwater. Glossolalia, I muttered under my breath. A medical term. Random speech caused by neurological misfires. I clung to that explanation like a lifeline. Then the room got cold. It wasn't gradual. 1 second I was warm under the fluorescent lights. The next, I could see my own breath fogging the air. My skin prickled with gooseflesh. Janet rubbed her arms and stepped back. "What the hell?" she whispered. She reached for the thermostat, checked the vent. Nothing had changed. The monitors hummed, still reading perfectly normal. Heart steady. Oxygen perfect. Temperature 98.7. The machines swore the girl was alive, healthy. But standing there in that freezing room, every instinct in my body screamed otherwise. And then her head turned. Slowly, stiffly, like a puppet on strings. Her wide, glassy eyes left the ceiling and fixed on me. I felt my mouth go dry. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her lips parted, and this time I heard it clearly. My name. Andrew. Not in her voice. Not in any one voice. In many. Dozens layered together, rising and falling like a wave. I stumbled back into the counter. Janet swore under her breath. The lights above flickered once, twice, buzzing angrily before steadying. The room felt smaller suddenly, like the walls had moved in an inch. "Dr. Collins." Janet's voice trembled. "This isn't right." I wanted to agree, but a doctor doesn't say things like that. A doctor explains, rationalizes, finds the cause. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling gnawing at me. Whatever was speaking from that girl's mouth wasn't her. I pulled the chair closer to her bed, my hands slick with sweat. "Okay," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "If you can speak, I need you to tell me who you are." Her lips moved faster, and the whispers grew louder, clearer. "We are not one," the voices hissed. "We are many." A shiver cut through me. "Many what?" Her eyes bored into mine. Cold, glassy, endless. "We are the pieces left behind." The words struck something deep inside me. Images flashed in my mind faces, gasps, moments from 100 resuscitations. The young man I'd pulled back from a heroin overdose, eyes snapping wide as he vomited and screamed. The grandmother I'd shocked 3 times until her heart grudgingly restarted. The teenager whose chest ID compressed until blood spurted from the tube, and she finally took a ragged breath. Every one of them lived because I refused to stop, because I forced their bodies to keep going when they were ready to let go. Pieces left behind. My pulse hammered in my ears. "You're saying? You're what? Souls?" Her mouth twisted into something between a smile and a grimace. The voices layered again, rising into a whisper that filled every corner of the room. Fragments, shadows, the parts you did not let pass. You held them back. Now we are here. The fluorescent light above us sputtered violently, buzzing so loud it drowned out the monitor's beeping. Janet stepped back until her shoulders hit the wall. I leaned forward despite myself. My voice was hoarse. Why now? Why her? Her lips moved slower now, as if savoring the words. She is not her. She is us. And we are not finished. My throat tightened. The air felt thick, hard to breathe. For the first time in my career, I had no chart to write, no diagnosis to give. All I had was the sickening certainty that something impossible was sitting in front of me, something that wanted me to hear it. And deep down, I knew I wasn't going to like what came next. The intercom shattered the silence. Code blue, bed 10. Code blue. I jumped from the chair. Janet and I ran out into the hallway. The doors to bed 10 banged open as paramedics rushed in a child. 7 years old, maybe. Small body, skin gray blue, water dripping from tangled blonde hair. His mother's screams echoed behind them, raw, desperate. Drowning, a medic shouted, pulseless on arrival. Down maybe 6 minutes. They slid him onto the bed, chest compressions already underway. A nurse bagged him, forcing air into tiny lungs. The flatline scream of the monitor filled the room. My training kicked in. I barked orders. 4 access. Get epi ready, pads on. And then I froze. Out of the corner of my eye, through the open door to bed 12, I saw her. The girl. Her head had turned toward the chaos. Her eyes locked on mine, unblinking. Her lips moved. And in that layered, inhuman chorus I heard, "If you bring him back, one of us must take his place. Balance must be kept." The words clawed at the inside of my skull. My mouth went dry. "Doctor," Janet's voice snapped me back. "What are your orders?" The boy's monitor screamed flat. His parents sobbed, clinging to each other in the hall. Every eye in the room was on me. But over it all, I heard her whisper again, "Choose." My body moved before my brain could argue. Charge to 200 joules. The defibrillator paddles hummed. Clear. The boy's body jolted. The monitor flickered, then flatlined again. Charge to 300. Sweat dripped into my eyes. My hands shook. Clear. Another jolt. Nothing. The girl's voice slithered through the air. "You cannot have both. Push epi." I barked, forcing myself louder than the whisper. We compressed, ventilated, shocked again. The minutes blurred into one long scream of alarms and sobbing and my own pounding heartbeat. And then a blip, a twitch of rhythm on the monitor. "Wait, hold compressions," I ordered. The line stuttered, then steadied into a heartbeat. Weak, fragile, but real. The boy coughed. His eyes fluttered open. He took a shallow breath, then another. Relief broke the room like a wave. Nurses exhaled. His parents collapsed against the wall, sobbing in joy. For one moment, I almost believed I'd won. And then from bed 12 came a single high-pitched alarm. I spun toward the door. The girl's monitor showed a flat line, her chest still. Her lips curled into the faintest smile. And in that many-voiced whisper, she spoke one last time. Balance restored, the tone held steady, long, unbroken. And then silence. We ran the code, of course. Compressions, airway, meds, but she was gone. When I went to update her chart, there wasn't one. No admission, no demographics, no record of transport. Dispatch swore no call had come from the cemetery. Paramedics denied bringing her. Bed 12 was empty. But I can still smell the lily. The boy went home 3 days later. His parents sent flowers and a thank you card. They called me a hero. They said I gave them back their son. I smiled politely, but inside, I couldn't accept it because I keep hearing her voice. I keep seeing her smile. And I keep wondering what paid the price for that boy's heartbeat. I still work nights. I still run codes. I still save lives. That's my job. But sometimes in the quietest hours, I catch a whiff of funeral lily drifting down the hall. And when the monitor screams flatline, when I place my hands on a chest and shout clear, I can't help but wonder, am I saving a life or stealing one?